Mia found herself soaked once more, standing alone under the relentless rain after Ethan left her for another girl. He believed she would continue pursuing him with the same determination as before. However, Mia had finally resolved to let him go. She had deleted all his contact information and made every effort to avoid him. Yet, Ethan seemed unaccustomed to her absence. During the school's milestone celebration, Ethan intentionally invited the girl who had previously tormented Mia to dance with him. Following that, he began dating her roommate, staying out late into the night. Eventually, he showed up at Mia's dorm with another girl, blocking her path. Sophia still causing trouble? If this continues, I'll truly find someone new, he remarked coldly. Mia looked at him and gave a faint smile. Your new girlfriend is lovely. I genuinely wish you both happiness. Suddenly, the car screeched to a halt under the heavy rain. Ethan forcefully opened the door, pulling Mia from the back seat. She stumbled, landing in the mud, disheveled. Sophia, girls as brazen as you are truly rare, he taunted, smirking down at her. Do you see her in the passenger seat? That's my new girlfriend. Mia slowly sat up, brushing mud and rainwater from her face. The downpour intensified, soaking her hair to the point it clung to her cheeks. The mud washed away, revealing her pale, petite face beneath. Ethan's eyes flickered briefly, a frown forming. Go home on your own. Stop trailing me. With that, he turned to re-enter the car. Ethan! Mia reached out with her muddy hand, gently tugging at his jacket. So we're officially done, right? Immediately, laughter erupted from the car. His new girlfriend's voice was sweet and mocking. Your ex-girlfriend is so clingy. Ethan chuckled impatiently, removing his jacket. Sophia, enough already. I admit I once cared for you, but now I'm over it. Understood? Mia nodded, her soaked clothes clinging uncomfortably, making her feel cold and suffocated. Then stop clinging to me. I only kissed and hugged you, never took things further. I don't owe you anything. Got it? She nodded again. Yes, I understand. Ethan said no more, gave her one last glance, and got into the car. That night, Mia fell ill with a fever, bedridden for 2 days before returning to class. She had deleted all of Ethan's contact information. Although she had to pass by his department on her way to class, instead of hoping for a chance encounter, she actively avoided him whenever she saw his group. Strangely, over the next few days, she kept running into Ethan despite her efforts to avoid him, until the school's anniversary gala. When Ethan saw Mia with her roommate, Sophia, he approached them directly. Mia, is Ethan going to invite you for the first dance? Her roommate softly asked. He asked you last year, but Ethan didn't ask me. He didn't even acknowledge me. Instead, he walked past Mia, inviting another girl, the one who had bullied her before and had once pursued him. As Ethan wrapped his arm around her waist and led her onto the dance floor, Mia felt her fingers go ice cold. Her roommate, Sophia, cautiously asked, Mia, are you okay? Mia shook her head. I'm fine, you guys have fun, I think I'll head back. Ethan's interest in whoever he liked was beyond Mia's right to interfere. However, he knew how badly that girl had treated her before. He had once felt sorry for Mia and stood up for her against the girl's bullying. Now, it seemed he had forgotten everything. Mia didn't want to cry, but as soon as she exited the ballroom, tears streamed down her face. A week later, Ethan began dating Sophia. Every day, he showered her with flowers and gifts. During class, he sat right beside her. After class, he kissed her in front of everyone. Sophia started returning to the dorm later and later. One day after class, Ethan came to pick up Sophia. As he passed Mia's desk, he knocked over her bag. An acrylic keychain, a small gift he had once given her, fell to the floor. It was so old she had forgotten to remove it. The keychain broke in two. Ethan raised an eyebrow as he glanced at it, then at Mia. Still holding on to it? So sentimental? Mia, expressionless, crouched down, picked up the broken keychain, and tossed it into the trash. As she walked away, the classroom fell silent. Just as she stepped outside, she heard a loud crash, like a desk being overturned, followed by Sophia's startled scream. The next morning, Mia saw Ethan downstairs with a new girl beside him. She was unfamiliar but stunning. Ethan called out to her. Mia didn't want to acknowledge him, but he stepped in front of her, blocking her path. Still causing trouble? Keep this up, and I'll really change girlfriends. She wanted to laugh, but it felt like something was stuck in her throat, making it impossible. This was the same Ethan who had once cornered her in his family's garden late at night, kissing her passionately. The same Ethan who had comforted her when she cried in fear, swearing he'd only ever love Sophia. Now, he was utterly detestable. Mia stayed silent and Ethan seemed flustered. As long as you stop causing trouble, I'll let bygones be bygones. Deleting my contact, avoiding me at school, I won't hold those things against you. Mia suddenly looked up at him and smiled faintly. Your new girlfriend is quite pretty. I wish you happiness sincerely. She didn't turn back or stop walking. Ethan, proud, had already lowered himself by approaching her today. They were never equals to begin with. She should never have been greedy. He was the son of a wealthy family, and she was merely an orphan they had taken in den out of kindness. Her father had been one of their chauffeurs. For years, her food, clothes, and shelter had depended on his family's goodwill. She had always remembered their kindness and her own place. But who can control a young heart stirred by love? This greed was the price she had to pay. The only comfort she had was that his family didn't know about them, and she would bury this short-lived relationship deep inside her. That night, Mia drank heavily and missed the dorm curfew. She had no choice but to head back to the Logan residence. Ethan's parents were away on vacation, and his grandfather was recuperating at a mountain villa. With no elders around, she wasn't too worried. But as soon as she stumbled into the house, tipsy and changed her shoes in the dark, she bumped into someone in the dining room. Startled, she almost screamed. Sophia? Logan's voice rang out just as the lights came on. Seeing the man before her, her heart nearly stopped. It was Ethan's young uncle, Logan. It took her a moment to stammer out a greeting. Logan? Mia frowned slightly. You've been drinking? Just a little. It was a classmate gathering. She was so flustered she didn't dare look at him, yet she was so drunk she could barely stand. Logan glanced at her. Go sit over there. I'll have someone from the kitchen make you a sobering soup. Drink it later, he said as he reached for his phone to call someone. Panicking, Mia stood up hurriedly, grabbing his sleeve in a fluster. No need, really. It's too much trouble. I'll just sleep it off. After all, I wasn't a part of their family. Even though the elders were kind and affectionate toward her, she always remembered her place and never crossed the line. Logan pulled his arm back coldly. Disoriented and weak-kneed, Mia lost her balance and collapsed to the floor when he yanked his arm away. Logan was tall, and as she fell to her knees, her forehead struck his belt buckle directly. The sharp edge cut into her skin, leaving a bloody scratch that quickly oozed droplets of blood. Clutching her wound, she teared up from the pain. Logan. Logan immediately removed her hand, cupped her face, and bent down to inspect the injury. Just then, the sound of staggering footsteps echoed from the entrance, followed by Ethan's drunken voice calling out, Mia, Mia! Logan's expression shifted slightly as he looked at her. Her heart pounded wildly, terrified he might suspect something. In desperation, she wrapped her arms around Logan's waist and buried her face in his chest to hide. Mia! Ethan's voice grew closer, and as he stepped through the doorway, he saw Logan bending over, holding a girl in his arms. The girl was kneeling in front of Logan, her arms wrapped around his waist. The intimate and suggestive posture sobered Ethan up instantly. He spun around, intending to leave, but his drunken stumble caused him to knock over a decorative piece on the cabinet, creating a loud crash. Ethan's breathing hitched. In the entire family, the person he feared most was his uncle Logan, who was only a few years older than him. And now, catching Logan in such an intimate moment with his girlfriend, Ethan wished he could disappear on the spot. Logan? I'm sorry, Ethan stammered. Get out, Logan said, his tone calm and steady as always, yet it made Ethan's heart pound wildly. He dared not linger and fled as quickly as he could. The door slammed shut behind him. Logan's face turned cold as he pushed Mia aside. Mia quickly put some distance between them, not daring to look up. The pain from the wound on her forehead burned like fire, but she didn't dare touch it. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, she stammered, unable to admit that she'd acted out of fear of Ethan discovering them. Logan looked at her sitting on the floor, dazed and pale, with the blood on her forehead drying and the edges of the wound red and swollen. His expression softened slightly. Come with me. Let's treat your wound, he said, turning toward the stairs. She didn't dare delay and scrambled to get up, though her legs were so weak she could barely stand. Leaning against the sofa for support, she steadied herself. Logan walked a few steps, then turned to look back when he noticed she wasn't following. Mia, he called, his voice calm but firm. Tears welled up in her eyes. I can take care of it myself in my room. There's no need to trouble you, she whispered, her voice trembling. He was silent for a few seconds. As you wish, he replied before turning and heading upstairs. Mia watched his retreating figure, her emotions in turmoil. It was too late to say anything now. All she could hope for was that Logan hadn't noticed anything suspicious earlier. She stumbled back to her room in a daze. A short while later, there was a knock on the door. Opening it, she found a servant holding a bag. Miss Mia, Mr. Logan asked me to bring you these ointments. Mia took the bag, staring blankly at the contents inside. Please thank him for me, she said softly. Of course. Rest well, the servant replied before leaving. As Mia closed the door, her chest felt inexplicably heavy. The next day at school, Ethan cornered her as soon as she arrived. Still hungover and weighed down by everything that had happened, she hadn't slept all night and was in no mood to deal with him. She ignored him and turned to leave. Mia, he called out, not chasing after her, but his next words froze her in her tracks. I'm planning to tell my parents about us. Her mind went blank. Are you crazy? Anger and fear made her tremble, her hands and feet cold. Ethan stepped closer, frowning as he noticed the injury on her forehead. What happened to you? It's none of your business. Answer me. Why would you tell your parents? Who said we're over? Ethan sneered. Couples break up and get back together all the time. I'm here to patch things up with you. We're the same as before. You're still my girlfriend. Ethan smirked, his tone both mocking and malicious. If you don't get back together with me, I'll tell my parents that you seduced me. That night, you took off your clothes and climbed into my bed on purpose. You're the reason I lost control. Do you think they believe you're innocent after hearing that? You're despicable, Ethan, Mia cried, furious. She raised her hand and slapped him hard across the face. The sound echoed, leaving red marks on his cheek. I admit I went too far before. I'm sorry, Ethan said, touching his face and suppressing his anger. This slap settles the score, okay? Let's move on. He leaned in, trying to embrace her as he always had. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. You know how much I like you. As he lowered his head to kiss her, Mia slapped him again, even harder than before. Ethan, I'd rather die than get back together with you. Say whatever you want. I've done nothing wrong and have nothing to hide. Mia, are you sure you want to keep this up? Ethan's tone grew colder, his face darkening. From birth, he'd been the untouchable young master. No one had ever laid a hand on him, yet Mia had slapped him twice. But she didn't care anymore. She was just an orphan, with nothing to lose. The night you pushed me out of the car was the night we ended things, she said, wiping her tears away. And I stopped loving you then, too. If you want revenge, go ahead. The life I have now is thanks to your parents' kindness. Even if you take it all away, I won't complain. Tsuko. Don't push me, Mia, he warned, his voice low and threatening. You know I've never been denied anything I wanted. And I'm still a person, Mia. Even at my lowest, I won't let you trample on me again. She knew Ethan wouldn't let this go, but she never expected him to do something so unforgivable. When she received a call from Ethan's mother, she had just stepped out of the library. It was noon, and the sunlight was making people drowsy, but Mia felt like she had plunged into an icy abyss. Mia, the driver's waiting outside the school gate. Come back home, her mother's voice was curt and distant, completely unlike her usual self. Is something wrong? Mia asked hesitantly. You'll know when you get here, her mother said, her tone cold. Anxiety gripped Mia as she left the school grounds. Her mind raced, unsettled by Ethan's recent words. Her heart sank deeper and deeper, weighed down by his remarks. When Ethan and Mia first started secretly dating, it was sweet at the beginning. It was her first experience of love, while Ethan was far more experienced. Whatever he asked of her, she would shyly but obediently comply. If he told his parents that she was the one who seduced him, she couldn't even fathom how she would face his kind and understanding parents, nor could she imagine continuing to live there. As she feared the moment she stepped into the Chen family's living room, Ethan's mother threw a stack of photos onto the table in front of her. The photos showed her, with wet hair, wearing a white men's shirt, smiling shyly yet alluringly at the camera. She remembered that day vividly. Ethan and Mia had gone on a date and got caught in the rain on their way back. Both of them were soaked, and Ethan whimsically handed her one of his shirts after her shower, asking her to wear it. She had agreed without protest, doing as he suggested. He seemed to like how she looked, complimenting her repeatedly. That night, he kissed her endlessly, almost losing control. Later, he took several photos of her with his phone. "These are for your eyes only," he had said, creating a private album for them. "Mia, you've really disappointed me," Ethan's mother said, her face dark with anger. "I've always treated you like my own daughter. All these years, I've been nothing but good to you. How could you send these kinds of photos to Ethan?" Staring at the photos, Mia was at a loss for words. She had willingly worn the shirt, agreed to the pictures, and kept her relationship with Ethan a secret from his family. Ethan's mother was convinced Mia had seduced him. What could she say to explain herself? They had raised her for years, providing her with a life of privilege, treating her like a daughter. She owed them too much to argue or risk bringing them shame. "Auntie, it's my fault," she said softly. "I entertained feelings I shouldn't have." She knelt down and gathered the photos scattered on the floor. "You have my word. I've thought it through and won't repeat such shameless behavior. I'll move out today." I took a deep breath, holding back tears, and bowed deeply. "Thank you for all the kindness you've shown me over the years. I will never forget it." With that, she turned to head upstairs, but as she did, she caught sight of Logan standing a short distance away. She hadn't noticed when he returned. His suit jacket was draped over his arm. It was unclear how much of the conversation he had overheard. She was too flustered to care and gave him a hasty nod before trying to leave. "What's going on?" Logan's voice stopped her. "It's nothing. I'm just going upstairs," she replied, her voice trembling. "Then why are you crying?" Only then did she realize tears were streaming down her face. Logan reached for the photos in her hands. She tried to snatch them back, but froze under his sharp gaze. Like Ethan, Logan was someone she feared. Even though it was his idea years ago to have Ethan's parents adopt her, granting her a safe and stable life, his presence was always intimidating. "Because of these photos?" he asked, glancing at Ethan's parents. "This isn't Mia's fault." "What?" Ethan's mother looked puzzled. Logan handed the photos back to her. "I took these photos of Mia," he said calmly. "But Ethan said—" Logan cut her off with a faint smile. "Ethan and Mia had a fight recently. That kid held a grudge and decided to pull this stunt to mess with her." Ethan's mother let out a breath of relief, but still looked skeptical. "Then why would you take such photos of Mia? She's still a child," Ethan's father added with a frown. Mia stood frozen, overwhelmed, and confused by Logan's unexpected intervention. Logan walked over to her, his hand resting lightly on her head. "She's 21 now, hardly a child anymore," he said. "And dating isn't a crime, is it?" The situation ended in a bewildering way. Mia inexplicably became Logan's girlfriend. Ethan's mother apologized to her and scolded Ethan harshly. "He's getting more and more out of hand these days." "Exactly. He used to bully Mia, but now he's gone so far as to pull a prank like this. Mia's reputation matters, especially since she's a girl. I won't let him off this time." "Ethan does need some discipline," Logan said. "Why don't we have him work under me at the company for some training?" Ethan's mother immediately agreed, beaming. "That's a great idea. I'd feel completely at ease with you in charge. Don't hold back," she added. "Don't worry," Logan replied. Then he turned to Mia. "I'll take Mia out for dinner. We won't be back tonight." In the car, Logan finally let go of her hand. He gave the driver an address, then turned to her. Mia, I remember you were 9 when you first came here. Yes, she replied, startled by his sudden reminiscence. When did you start dating Ethan? Tik ork. About a year ago, he stammered. But we've broken up. Do you still like him? She hesitated, feeling a dull ache in her chest, but shook her head. No, I don't. Logan nodded slightly. Are you sure? Yes, she said firmly. Good. Tomorrow, you'll move out, he said. I'll have someone pick you up once your things are packed. Pick me up? Where to? My place, Logan replied matter-of-factly. But... You're my girlfriend now, aren't you? But that's just a pretense to help me out. I don't want to. But you're Logan. You're my elder, Mia replied. But Logan interrupted. I'm Ethan's uncle, but we're not related by blood. And I'm only 8 years older than you. Besides, if I recall correctly, you were the one who came to me first. She flushed at the memory of that night, unable to argue. Seeing her silence, Logan softened his tone. Living with me will keep Ethan from bothering you. Think it over. Mia moved into Logan's house. The house was much closer to her school. Logan was usually busy, so she still stayed in the dorm most of the time. Only on weekends would he come to pick her up. A few days ago, Logan arranged for Ethan to intern at the company. He was sent directly abroad. Ethan feared Logan and didn't dare slack off on work matters. As a result, he was constantly busy and had no time to pester Mia anymore. A month later, when Ethan returned from his overseas trip and came to look for Mia at school, she had just stepped out of Logan's car. She waved at Ethan, ready to leave, but Logan stopped her. Mia? Yes, do you need something? She took 2 steps back toward the car. Logan reached out and grabbed her wrist, pulling her into his arms with a slight tug. Logan, I panicked, worried that a passing classmate might see us. I'll pick you up tonight. He let go of her wrist, and she quickly stood straight. But just then, someone roughly grabbed her arm. Mia, Ethan's eyes were practically blazing with anger. What are you doing? Are you flirting with my uncle now? Logan got out of the car, gripped Ethan's wrist, and said coldly, Let go. If everything goes as planned, 2 years from now, when Mia graduates, you'll need to start calling her aunt. Logan's gaze was firm as he looked at Ethan. So, starting this moment, you'd better show her some respect. Ethan was utterly stunned, and even Mia looked at Logan in shock. Mia, go back to the dorm. No! She can't leave. Ethan was on the verge of breaking down. He held on to Mia tightly. Logan, she's my girlfriend. This isn't funny. No one is joking with you. Logan's cold gaze landed on Ethan's hand. Take your hand off her. I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. Ethan shook his head repeatedly, looking at Mia. I know. You're doing this on purpose, to provoke me, aren't you? Seeing Ethan refuse to let go, Logan didn't waste any more words. He called his assistant. Get him out of here! Ethan struggled, but Logan's stern look made him stop. Try causing trouble again and see what happens. Ethan was unwilling, but he didn't dare make another scene. After Ethan was escorted into the car, Logan walked over to Mia. Don't overthink it. I'll handle this. Got it. I'll pick you up tonight. Go on. Logan waited until Mia entered the dorm building before getting back in his car and leaving. As soon as she walked into the dorm, Sophia turned and left with a cold face. She had dated Ethan for half a month before he dumped her. It wasn't until after their breakup that Sophia realized she'd been used. Ethan had only dated her to provoke Mia. After learning the truth, Sophia harbored some resentment toward her. Mia wanted to make amends because Sophia had been one of her first good friends in college. They used to get along really well. If it weren't for Ethan, they wouldn't have had a falling out. Mia, do you think you two can make up? To be honest, Ethan was such a jerk. No wonder Sophia's upset. I felt the same way. A girl like Sophia couldn't possibly withstand Ethan's charm. I felt the same way. A girl like Sophia couldn't possibly withstand Ethan's charm. I'll go talk to her. Yeah, you two should have a proper conversation. After all, you're in the same dorm. Sophia and Mia talked for a long time. Though Sophia still had some lingering grievances, she was willing to mend their friendship. That evening, Logan came to pick Mia up as promised. He had probably been out socializing and smelled of alcohol. As soon as she got into the car, before she could greet him, he pulled her close. Startled, she tried to push him away, but his grip tightened. Mia, Logan, you're drunk. I am, but I'm very clear-headed. His slightly tipsy eyes gazed at her, gradually softening. Can I? She didn't reply, but she also didn't shake her head. Over time, Mia had started to see Logan in a different light. What once felt uncomfortable had turned into a desire to spend more time with him. Logan pulled her into his arms and lowered his head to kiss her. His lips carried the strong scent of alcohol, and Mia, not used to drinking, found it overpowering. She shook her head, trying to push him away. Logan opened his eyes, looked at her, and stopped. Instead, he buried his face in her neck, looking tired. Mia. His voice was husky as he tugged at his tie. My head hurts. For some reason, the fear and distance Mia usually felt toward Logan seemed to melt away in his rare moment of vulnerability. Do you want to see a doctor? No hospital, he said, shaking his head and hugging her tighter. The smell of hospitals makes it worse. Then what should we do? I saw you massaging Grandpa before, he said, looking at her. Do the same for me. The driver couldn't help but chuckle, but quickly fell silent. Mia muttered under her breath. Are you really drunk or just pretending? This behavior is so unlike Logan. Summoning her courage, Mia gently placed her hands on his temples. Summoning her courage, Mia gently placed her hands on Logan's temples. Let me know if it feels uncomfortable. After a while, when he didn't respond, she asked softly, Is this pressure okay? Moments later, Logan suddenly grabbed her wrist. Stop talking, it's noisy. Mia held her breath and increased the pressure slightly. In the dim car, a faint smile seemed to form at the corner of Logan's lips. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would have thought it was her imagination. From that day on, Mia's relationship with Logan seemed to grow closer. When they lived at the old family house, she had been terrified of him. The moment she saw him from afar, she would avoid him like a mouse avoiding a cat. But now, under the same roof, she occasionally dared to talk back. Logan was extremely busy, but every Friday night without fail, he would come to pick her up. Even though they lived in the same house, they slept in separate rooms. Logan was reserved and disciplined, a true gentleman. Except for a goodnight kiss on weekend nights, he rarely showed any physical affection. Living with him, Mia gradually felt at ease. For the first time in years, she experienced a sense of belonging, as though she truly had a home. Every elder in the old house had treated her kindly, but as a child living under someone else's roof, Mia had always been sensitive and mature, beyond her years. Though she lacked nothing materially, she had never felt a sense of home, not even during the months when Ethan treated her well. Yet with Logan, she finally found that feeling. She couldn't pinpoint when it started, but she began looking forward to Fridays, looking forward to seeing his car downstairs, looking forward to opening the car door and seeing him, looking forward to curling up with him on the couch to watch a random movie, looking forward to those goodnight kisses on weekend nights. She loved hearing him call her Mia. It felt intimate, like a warmth that softened her heart. It made her feel like a little girl again, someone who could be willful without the fear of being disliked or sent away. On the eve of summer vacation, Logan had a 2-week business trip to France. Initially, he planned to take Mia with him, but she had an important exam coming up, so she couldn't go with him. The day Mia finished her exam, Sophia suggested a night out at a bar with their dorm mates to unwind. After taking a shower back at the dorm, she was drying her hair when she made a video call to Logan. It took him a while to pick up. In the video, Logan was wearing a navy blue shirt, sitting in what appeared to be an office. By Mia's calculations, he still had 3 days before coming back. Yet, from the second day of his trip, she already started missing him. Heading out? He asked. Yes, I'm going to a bar with my dorm mates later. We might have a few drinks. I'll arrange a car to take you there and pick you up afterward. No need for that. It's just my dorm mates and classmates. How did the exam go? Not bad. Looking at Logan on the screen, Mia couldn't help but reach out and lightly touch his face. Logan, you're coming back the day after tomorrow, right? Yes, should I pick you up? Logan chuckled. You'll drive. She glared at him, puffing out her cheeks. I've had my license since I became an adult. All right then, come pick me up. I'll go dry my hair now. Mia? What is it, Logan? In the video, Logan gazed at her, his expression relaxed, carrying a trace of gentleness. Call me when you get back tonight. Got it. I got you a gift. On the screen, Mia smiled, her eyes curving into crescents. Thank you, you're the best. Go now, dry your hair or you'll catch a cold. Roger that. As she headed out, a sense of elation filled her. The night was electric, and she ended up drinking a bit too much. Since most of them were girls, the drinks were mainly beer, fruit wines, and low-alcohol cocktails, but the mix of drinks made her dizzy, quickly. At that moment, Sophia approached with a glass of wine. Mia, she said, handing it to her, have a drink. Mia smiled at her foolishly through her haze. Does that mean if I drink this, everything's fine between us? Sophia laughed. Yes, drink this and it's all good. Not one to overthink, Mia downed the glass in one go, and Sophia did the same. Let's step outside and talk, she suggested. The private room was noisy, filled with chaotic chatter and laughter, making conversation impossible. Mia followed Sophia out. This room is empty. Let's sit here. Sophia led her to the end of the hallway and opened the door to a private room, but Mia didn't step in. Sophia, she called out. Sophia turned to her, the smile on her face fading entirely. If I'm not mistaken, someone's in that room, aren't they? Mia's pounding headache made her steady herself against the wall. Orphaned young and raised under someone else's roof, I, Mia, grew up cautiously, far from a naive girl without defenses. Sophia, don't blame me, Sophia said, grasping her arm. Ethan told me to bring you here. If I didn't, he threatened to post my photos online. Sophia's pale face twisted into a bitter smile. I truly like him, but he's never felt the same about me. I'm not doing this for him. I'm doing it for myself. Mia, I'm not like you. I can't afford to lose face. My family can't afford it. With that, she yanked Mia into the room. As Mia struggled, Ethan's hands firmly gripped her. Sophia released her, her expression vacant. Sophia. Mia called her name weakly, but she had already closed her eyes and shut the door. Darkness consumed Mia's vision. Ethan's body pressed against hers, the strong smell of alcohol enveloping her. Mia, he murmured, I should have taken you long ago. I shouldn't have held back just because you were younger. Mia fought back with all her strength, but Ethan was far stronger. Her body, burning with heat from the alcohol and drugs, refused to obey her. He spun her around to face him and forced a harsh kiss on her. As she tried to push him away, a maddening desire clawed at her from within. Logan has a cleanliness obsession, Ethan sneered. Once I have you, he'll never want you again. For the rest of your life, you'll be mine, even if it kills you. Cold air rushed over her as he tore her dress apart. The shock cleared her head for a brief moment. When Ethan leaned in to kiss her again, Mia summoned all her strength and kneed him hard. But what she thought was all her strength barely fazed him. He grunted in pain, but quickly retaliated, his hand closing around her throat. So, how long have you been sneaking around with Logan under my nose? For years, women have thrown themselves at him, and he's ignored them all. Why you? He knew you were dating me. Ethan's handsome face contorted with rage. Mia clotted his hand, gasping for air, on the brink of passing out. Then, just as her vision dimmed, Ethan suddenly let go. He flung her onto the couch and lunged at her again. At that moment, the door burst open with a loud crash. The weight pressing on her disappeared. A thud followed by Ethan's pain scream echoed in the room. Through the blur, Mia saw Logan's furious face. He draped his jacket over her exposed body, shielding her. Mia, he called softly, scooping her into his arms. Wrapped in his scent and warmth, she knew she was safe. Tears streamed down her face as she buried herself in his chest. What are you doing here? She choked. Weren't you supposed to be in France? You weren't due back for 3 more days. I wrapped up work early and came back ahead of schedule, Logan said, holding her tighter. It's over. You're safe now. He pressed a gentle kiss on her brow. In the car, Mia started acting up. Whatever Sophia had put in that drink left her unbearably hot, as if ants were crawling all over her skin. By the time they neared the hospital, she'd nearly stripped Logan of his clothes. Her high temperature made him feel cool to the touch, and she clung to him like a lifeline. Mia, Logan said, exasperated as he tried to hold her back. But I climbed onto your lap, wrapping myself around you. Logan. She cupped his face and kissed him, her throat burning with an insatiable thirst. Water, she pleaded. I'll get it for you. As he tried to move, she clung tighter to his neck. No need, you have it. Logan wrapped her in his coat and carried her back to the room. Go take a shower first. He carried her to the bathroom. The water temperature was intentionally set a little lower than usual. At first, Mia felt somewhat comfortable and stopped pestering him, humming softly instead. But just 5 minutes after she got out of the shower, her body started to heat up again. Logan's shirt and pants had gotten a little wet from the water. The thin fabric clung to his chest muscles and abs, and the definition of his muscles was so tantalizing. Mia couldn't help but stare. She couldn't resist reaching out to touch him again. This time, he didn't push her away. Instead, he picked her up and sat her on the sink, grabbing her chin and kissing her deeply. When she was feeling dizzy from the kiss, he whispered in her ear, Mia, are you still uncomfortable? Uncomfortable. Do you want to feel better? She nodded vigorously. Logan lifted her up. Hold on tight. But there's no such thing as a free lunch. If you want comfort, there's always some suffering at the start. Mia almost kicked Logan off the bed, but she still felt wronged. You're a liar. You're bullying me. Logan restrained her thrashing legs. He grabbed both her wrists with one hand and pinned them above her head. He leaned down, and that smile of his was almost devilish. Yes, I'm bullying you. His smile made her feel dizzy. Before Mia knew it, he had his way with her for the whole night. Ethan stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks. That night, he had the misfortune of being kicked to the ground by his uncle, breaking 2 ribs. As soon as his injuries healed, he was sent abroad. As for Sophia, Logan asked for her opinion. Mia hesitated for a long time. If I pursued this matter, what Sophia did to me by drugging my drink was no small thing. It was a criminal offense. She would never graduate, and there would be a permanent stain on her record. But I'm not a saint. So in the end, I decided to call the police and let them handle it. The police's findings were never made public, but not long after, Sophia was expelled from school and forced to withdraw. I was at school the day her parents came to pick her up. She cried uncontrollably as she left the dorm with her family. I felt a little upset inside, but no matter what, if you make a mistake, you have to pay the price. When Logan called her, he could tell Mia wasn't in a good mood. He drove over to pick her up that evening. That night, he didn't take her out for a fancy dinner. He cooked dinner himself, steak and pasta. They had a little red wine with it. Later, while cooling off on the terrace, Mia asked him, "Did you like me all along?" Logan shook his wine glass. "I'm not that perverted." Mia couldn't help but laugh. "I didn't mean years ago." Logan lowered his head and took a sip of his wine. "I mean before you secretly started dating Ethan. Then why didn't you tell me?" Logan put his glass down and extended his hand to her. Mia took his hand and snuggled into his arms. "If I hadn't broken up with Ethan, would you have kept quiet about it forever?" "No." Logan stroked her hair. Mia wavered when she realized Logan wasn't happy with her. "When did you realize?" "One night I came back late, and you were crying alone in the garden. I heard you calling Ethan over and over again, but no one picked up. Eventually, you were blocked. I thought you'd be crying even harder, but you weren't." Logan paused here. He pulled her in closer, and his voice dropped. "You didn't cry, but instead you muttered to yourself." "What did I say?" Logan kissed her lightly. "You said, 'It's no big deal, Mia. It's not like this is the first time I've been abandoned.'" "There's no reason to cry. Tears silently streamed down her face. I was just telling the truth. After my mom and dad divorced, it was just my dad who raised me. When I was little, I hated my mom for leaving me. But later, when I heard she passed away from illness, I was still heartbroken. Then, my dad left me too. From childhood to now, I've had to face farewell after farewell. So later on as I grew up, breakups didn't hurt as much for me. It felt like I had already gotten used to it. Living alone, just me. It won't be like that anymore. Logan gently patted her back. Mia, I'll be with you from now on. Why do you like me? Logan looked down at her tear-streaked face. At first it was pity. You were just a little girl who became an orphan, and that was really sad. Then, as I watched you grow up, clearly walking on thin ice, but pretending everything was fine, it made me feel heartbroken. But pity and heartache aren't the same as romantic love. Logan smiled lightly. Later, when I found out you and Ethan were secretly dating, I couldn't sleep for half a month. I knew something was off. Then why did you act like that? You clearly liked me. That night when I hugged you while you were drunk, why were you still so mad? I thought you were just using me to make Ethan jealous. I'm not that bored, Mia responded. I poked his chin. I don't like him anymore. What about me? I felt a little dazed, staring at Logan. Yet in my mind, I saw that young man from more than a decade ago. Slim and handsome, standing tall like a poplar, his presence outstanding. The living room was full of people. Mia still wore the white flower on her chest. Her dad's funeral had just ended. They were discussing what to do with her, the orphan. Her dad had died on duty, and Logan's grandfather, a kind man, had helped with the funeral arrangements. The old man even opened a bank account for her and deposited the compensation money there. At the time, distant relatives surfaced, eager to adopt her. It would have been the easiest arrangement for their family. Logan's parents were all for it. She was only 9 at the time, but she had a vague understanding that she would probably have to go with these relatives she had never met to another province. She had never seen these relatives before, but now they came out of nowhere, pretending to be kind. Even as a child, she could sense their insincerity. It must have been because of the $2 million in compensation. But as a 9-year-old, she had no choice. She was like a drifting reed, just going with the flow, being controlled by others. But then Logan suddenly spoke up. Let her stay here. What's the problem with one more person at the table? We can afford to feed her. After all, her father died serving us. Our family taking care of her would look good on us. After saying that, he walked over to her and took her hand. Mia, do you want to stay? At that moment, she was as frightened as a bird shot with an arrow. But when Logan held her hand, it felt like a drifting boat had finally found a shore. In her subconscious, she always felt that this uncle, who had no blood relation to her, was somehow far more reassuring than the so-called cousins and their spouses. She nodded through her tears, gripping his hand and refusing to let go. Logan wiped her tears away. Then stay here. He was highly favored in the family, the old man who adored his youngest son, who was so like him, both wise and steady. He rarely asked for much, but since he had spoken up this time, the old man, of course, wouldn't refuse him and immediately agreed. From that moment on, Mia stayed with their family. A driver's daughter, yet she was raised in comfort like a young lady. Her fate was rewritten because of Logan. Round and round, the man she once timidly called Logan had become her boyfriend and given her a home. Her eyes grew wet and warm. Logan, Mia said softly, thank you. Mia, you know what I want to hear, Logan replied. She held him tightly, not letting him see how disheveled she looked from crying. He would never know that when she was young, she often dreamed. And in those dreams, the people who appeared would always take the form of Logan. As she grew older, her courage became smaller. She thought she could never touch someone like him, and so she stopped daring to dream of him. She deliberately erased him from her mind. The young girl's budding feelings were severed before they could even fully grow. But luckily, fate had its way, and now they had reconnected. Carry me to the bedroom, and I'll tell you everything. All right, Logan picked her up. She rested on his shoulder, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat. It turned out that every love story had its trace to follow when Logan, at 17, had taken the hand of 9-year-old Mia. Now, at 21, Mia was more than willing to offer him her whole life.